We did the ultrasound and we found out that I was at the 6-week mark. Immediately, it went from terrified to like I was numb.
People are rationing their insulin because they cannot afford it, and they are dying.
This is supposed to be the greatest country in the world, but I just almost lost my sister last year. I don't know when my last shot will be.
You can't breathe, you can't cool down, there's not enough water, so you're at an internal war, trying to do what you can to make sure your baby is safe.
Seven years later, I live in this house. It's not even my home anymore. It's my house. Because my son isn't here. He made it a home.
Do you want to take a minute?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's take a minute.
I didn't have anyone to talk to. You have to live under the shadows. Yeah, but with her, I'm able to be myself. I personally appreciate the love, the care. She tried to show me this vision of anything is possible, no matter who you are.
I had never heard of FIRST Robotics or even the coconuts before. When I saw how my friends were getting involved with it, I got really interested. Everyone's willing to be kind to each other, willing to help you out. I said, I want to be one of them.
When I look at this place, and I know what it took to get this, the hard work and sacrifices, I listened to this guy talk, and I'm thinking, this is about my kids, my grandkids. This is about the future.
Moms Demand Action is every day. Having that platform to be able to speak out, that's great for me because now I'm turning my pain into purpose.
It's my life's work.
Seeing my mom finish her higher education was life-changing. I don't think anything can ever stop me from my goals because I saw her do it as a single parent with twin girls, with life pushing her down so many ways, but she continued to rise up.
Yours is one of the stories, but each one is as important as you.
My name is John Jenkins Jr.
My name is Regina Thompson Jenkins.
My name is Alicia Clauser.
Celeste Camper-Wallet.
Deborah Torbert.
Luke Helen.
Catherine Peaceaba.
Tanya McCall.
Teska
Representative
Frisbee.
Joella
Jerry
Boyd.
Overson.
Jamie Usher. Leslie Noon.
Hello, and welcome to HardpinLabs Live, an interactive space for creators, campaigns, and organizations who want to sharpen their storytelling and create content that really connects. Think of it as an open lab where we share what we've learned, trade best practices, and bring in experts who can help you push your content further. Remember, you can ask questions at any time by going to hardpin.live and submit those to us. And if you'd want to engage even further, join our second screen experience by going to full.hardpin.live. If you're on your desktop or if you're on your mobile, event.hardpin.live. You can also sign up for our newsletter at hardpin.com/signup. And yeah, enjoy the show, enjoy our community, and hopefully you'll get something out of our conversation. Without further ado, let me introduce today's panelists. We've got a returning champion, Will Heiler, back with us for another great discussion. He's our resident creative director, leads a lot of our innovation work, creative process, a long history of work in animation and design. Just a fantastic person to have be part of our conversation today. Also joining us is Russell Calkins, partner and CTO here at Hardpin. He oversees our tech stack, leads a lot of our gear innovation, studio builds, live solutions, and just generally great guy. to have on for discussions. He's also doing a lot of work in the background on our live. So forgive him if he's juggling multiple things while we have this discussion. And I'm really excited to introduce our special guest for today's show, Jeremy Carrasco, longtime collaborator with over 10 years of experience as a director, manager, and technician. We worked with him during his time as head of production at LiveX, and most recently, he's been active as a creator running the channel showtools.ai, where he explores media literacy and AI video spotting with cultural analysis. A subject matter that has been very much top of mind lately and really getting a lot of attention and breaking through the algorithm. Jeremy, really great to have you. Really excited to have you on. Wanted to toss it to you and give you a chance to just speak a little bit about your expertise and all the stuff that's been going on lately that you've been speaking about.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a really wild 5 months or so. So started creating the Show Tools AI pages in early June. So yeah, coming up on 5 months here. In that time, now I have about 200,000 followers on TikTok, nearing that on Instagram, and just about to get 20,000 on YouTube, that's my favorite platform. So excited to get there on YouTube, but it's a slower build there. Really talking about AI video spotting and cultural analysis around AI video. And because, TikTok obviously it's like the first time AI really hit TikTok. It's been like the place where we just talk about AI in general, for better or worse. YouTube and Instagram weren't originally my, where I was finding any success, but it's really just gone everywhere now as people have become much more concerned. So yeah, my background is in production as a technical producer, director, streaming architect. Worked on DNC 2024, did some consulting and technical work for the campaigns last year. Was very involved in that in the back end as a head of production at LiveX, and really just been a streaming and production industry professional for most of my career. So the content thing was supposed to be a bit of a sideshow, and it became the thing that I'm doing now, which has been much to my surprise. I mean, I think the thing I would say that would give people encouragement right off the bat is I didn't think that anyone cared about what was real or not on the internet, and I just didn't think it would succeed. And I had a lot of people telling me it wouldn't. And so to have any success, I think should be very encouraging just for the broader idea of finding any sort of truth on the internet. So speaking of which, it has been very messy recently with Sora 2. I'm sure we'll get to talking about that. And I think that would bring us to our first segment here, which is talking about the AI snap videos, which have been pretty confusing to a lot of people, not least of which was Fox News. And I think I'm supposed to throw to that video here. This lady is real. There are multiple press outlets saying that this is an AI video. It is not an AI video. A few days ago, Fox News posted an article saying that there were a bunch of videos of SNAP beneficiaries complaining that their benefits were about to run out. They were reacting to rage bait videos. This was one of them. Ironically, this is a real video of someone acting the part of a SNAP beneficiary, okay? I think it was the same day. I can put a note, I forget how it relates to the Fox News article. I made a post about AI videos mimicking that style of fake AI people claiming, the rage bait, claiming that their SNAP benefits are gonna run out. We have a bunch of children, how are we gonna feed our family? Okay, that video got picked up by a bunch of liberal media. It was on Hassan Piker's show. I don't know who else picked it up, but it had legs, right? Now, Fox News decided to retract their original story and say that it is AI videos of SNAP beneficiaries complaining about cuts going viral. And they were right. There are a lot of AI videos in this style. But ironically, the videos in their article were real. They got spooked, from what I can tell. I haven't individually verified every video here. I haven't had time, but I did individually verify this with Drew Harwell of the Washington Post. That is a real person. So now there are a bunch of liberal outlets piling onto Fox News about not being able to tell if this is a real video or not. And they are also calling it a fake video. And they're just piling on, and they're not doing the research that Drew and I did. So the problem here is that everyone is spinning it in their own political lens, and I'm not trying to be a squishy centrist here. Like, I think that the Fox News report was irresponsible because at the very least it was reacting to rage bait. What I'm reacting to this for is that my video is being wrapped up in calling this woman fake or AI, which she is not. I don't want us to have to quibble over every single little video we find on social media to figure out if it's real. But if you are a news reporter and you are going to be reporting on things, you do need to know if videos are real or not. I know we're starting in the middle there, but segment's really about just how once AI video is entering the picture, everything just gets so much more confusing for everybody. And that's really what I've been trying to sort out. And I hope that we can, really just talk about not only the technology, but how it impacts what we're seeing online, and the fact that we spend so much time online and now people just don't trust what they see anymore at all. It's been a really big turn in the past 5 months.
Yeah, it really feels like this was something where it was sort of like, it was like there was a turn, then there was another turn, and everybody just ran with it to sort of like have it fit the narrative, like you're saying, sort of the narrative of their their perspective on it. And none of the outcomes are good from that. So how do you approach something like this? Is it just something that like your audience is sort of letting you know that this is out there and to go check it out? Are you sort of finding ways of having this stuff, sort of exploring this stuff as it's coming out? What's been your process?
It's been very interesting. It's developed a lot. I used to spend probably 3 hours a day going through the algorithms and hoping that something was going to hit me that was popular, but just the nature of short form is that everyone has their own bubbles, so it's very difficult to find out what's out there. At this point, I rarely get sent. I get sent probably 30 to 50 videos a day by my community, and it's actually just a matter of sorting through the patterns and sorting through what is happening out there. So for example, I now am oftentimes skimming, and I'm hiring people to help do this too. Like, we're skimming these messages, we're figuring out what's out there in the algorithm, and we're about to tune some, I would say, methods, which I'm not going to get into too much yet, to dive deeper into these algorithms in a more automated way. A little bit tricky to do when you're still trying to follow the guidelines and like the terms of services of these platforms. And it's also a little bit funny because while a little bit of the superpower is the community, it's also a bit of a weakness because now a lot of these AI video accounts will, it happened again today, actually, they'll block me preemptively so that I can't find them. But then I have such a big community now that I start getting messages from people, and then I can't see the videos, and I'm like, okay, which account was that? And then go on to a burner. So there's a whole process. But and the other thing I would say that has really changed how I view this is that because I have a platform now, I will reach out to accounts, tell them about to make a report on them, and then I've now had multiple times they will just take the videos down because they don't want the attention, or we'll have a dialogue back and forth and they'll realize, oh, that wasn't the good, that wasn't the best thing to do. One of the videos I covered in the Snap beneficiaries piece is like they ended up taking that down. I had a conversation with them and they realized that it was the wrong thing to do. They were just there for attention. They weren't there for a political motivation. And once they noticed that, they removed it. So I have some optimism. At the end of the day, a lot of the accounts making these videos, even if they seem to be politically motivated, it's just the incentives on the algorithms. And when you talk to them, they realize that they're maybe gaming an algorithm that they didn't quite understand.
And is your sense that it's a range of create, and I'll use the word creators, but like is it people that are rage baiting, trolling, but also, more organized sort of efforts that are sort of dark arts and dark webby, or is it more the attention piece where people are really just trying to, break through, and they're seeing stuff like this breaks through, and so they're going hard in that direction?
I think the scariest thing is that it's mostly casual. It's not state actors, because most major tech companies have an arm, and I know because I'm working with them, of disinformation hunting that will go after state actors or more organized groups, and that's really their focus. And the reason that this has been tough is because a lot of those tools to track those just like casual engagement farming creators, like the tools aren't made for that. They're made for like tracking down to see if Russia is doing a disinformation campaign.
Sure.
And it's also like, these existing detection vendors don't have the incentive to help us figure out what's real or not. Like they have clients. It's a very different situation. So in fact, it is mostly casual. There are automated accounts. There are definitely content farms. A lot of those are overseas. Not a lot, but there's a portion of existing scamming organizations that might have been in India that are now just transitioning over to making AI slop on Facebook. A lot of that isn't very sophisticated. It's oftentimes with photos. They don't even need videos on Facebook. So most of what I see is just engagement. And, the idea is, you get over 10,000 followers on TikTok, you start making 1 minute long TikTok shorts, you game the algorithm, you get some TikTok creator fund. That's where a lot of this is coming from. And Sora has made this worse because Sora is free, which we can talk about. I mean, the VO you had to pay, Sora you don't have to pay. That means that the volume of slop is just astronomical now. That's been possibly the OpenAI's biggest improvement, was just making it free for everyone more than anything else.
Right. And before we get into questions, I guess I'll want to sort of, because I think this will come up later, but it'd be great to just sort of touch on it. How fast, and from, as somebody who's really paying attention to this stuff, how fast is this moving? The evolution, the advancement, and the implementation, like it, even just in the last couple months. Like, how are you sort of seeing that?
Well, what's interesting, it depends on your perspective. Really, we've only seen version like 0.1 to version 1 so far. Now, this can be alarming to people because it's already moved so quickly, but you can also now start to see patterns on what these models are good at and what they aren't good at. So a good example of this is Bill Peebles, the head of Sora at OpenAI, has said that one of the things they don't know how to fix yet is this Sora accent. Seems like inherent in the way that the models are working. There are other things that are inherent in the way that models are working that we can start to identify. Of course, they are getting harder and harder to figure out just by the layperson, but which is a huge problem, and I'm not discounting that. But it has moved fast, but at the same time, the fact that it has moved at all has at least shown us where the momentum is going and given us some idea. Whereas before, when it was just Sora 1, or they call VO3, but it's really it's barely the third version. It's practically like the first commercially viable version was VO3. Now that we have those, we can really see where they will be going in the future, which I think before it was a big unknown. I posted a video 4 months ago that, I assumed that the technology wouldn't move as quickly as it did purely because it wasn't an LLM-based technology. I figured that there was less commercial incentive. It turned out the big mistake I made was that slop has become like a major opportunity for these companies. They haven't wanted to, to admit that, but previously I thought that taking the GPUs away from large language models would be something they wouldn't want to do. Turns out that's the way that they're trying to make money. So that's also been a big change, is just how the major research labs are thinking about AI video. That has changed a lot since VO3 came out.
Right. Yeah, crazy stuff. All right, well, let's get into our first question. I think this is sort of like a right over the plate here. Question. This one comes to us from Amanda. What are the quickest ways to ID AI generated content on social platforms? Is there a tool you can use? Jeremy, any thoughts on this one?
I use some of the tools and they're not as accurate as they should be. I use them as a data point. I don't recommend any of them at this point because I have a platform, and at this point it would seem fairly irresponsible for me to recommend something, because frankly, if you don't know how to use them as a tool rather than a truth-seeking device, it can actually set you up to make major mistakes with false positives and false negatives.
Right.
The existing tools that are very good are oftentimes, again, developed by vendors who are selling to nation states or major Fortune companies, Fortune 100 companies, trying to combat disinformation about their brands. This is changing rapidly. The number of, there is like some VC funded detection companies that are starting to come out. So I hope that changes in the near future. As far the good news though is that really these aren't sophisticated actors. I mean, you can just look at their Instagram page and realize they only make AI slop. Like that's really where this is right now. There are very
Right.
few accounts that are actively spreading disinformation, and that's because there are. I'll give OpenAI credit. There are some disinformation guardrails. Like you can't deepfake politicians with Sora, at least not without getting caught at this point. So, so there are ways to ID them, but at the end of the day, I would, if you're not used to looking at AI videos, I would start backwards. I would use media literacy skills, tracking the source, deciding if you trust the account, deciding if
Right.
it's a repost, working backwards from there, and then use AI video as a way to fingerprint the trustworthiness and the methods of the account rather than starting at the AI video and working up from there.
And is there like, I guess my question, I want to bring Russ into this, but is, I feel like it used to be like, count the fingers. That's the way you can tell if it's a, it's a generated video. Now you can't do that. Obviously, it feels much more uncanny valley. Like there's just something that feels off a lot of times. But is it, are we at a place now where perceptively you can't tell the difference? Like, is it that good, or do you think there's still like room for that to fully lock in?
Was that to Russ or me?
No, to you
I
first, and then I'm going to bring him into the conversation.
Yeah, got it. It's probably imperceptible to, I would guess at this point, there needs to be research on this. I would say 50% of the population on first scroll, 25% of them might think something's off. What they do with that 25% of suspicion is actually, that's like why these are working, which is a side conversation for a minute. And then I would say maybe 10 to 25% of the rest of people can tell that something is off and might suspect it's AI. But here's the thing, there are a lot of people who are worried about imperceptibility. It's really not there yet. I've seen some very, very good ones that are getting close. We're getting there, but it's not there yet. But to the average person, especially with poor eyesight, yeah, I think there aren't any easy things I can give just the average person at this point. Like you really do have to understand how these models work and what their weak points are. Once you understand what the weak points are, you know where to look. So an example would be, this is a concrete one. In textures, in Sora 2 made videos, look at hair, look at fabrics, look at dirt, look at anywhere where there are fine textures, you will see the pixels moving around. It's a thing I've called Sora noise. That's because it's not camera static. It is actually the pixels that are being predicted by the model. There's a whole reason why it does that. Whereas Google VO3 doesn't have as much noise. It's maybe too smooth because they smooth out the noise process. It's inherent to how these models work. So the models just, they do have giveaways that are based on like the actual properties of how these videos work. And it's understanding, where to look for those. And I can dig more into that, but that's my first answer is that yes, it is perceptible. It's just not to everyone anymore.
Right. Got it. Russ, anything to add?
I mean, I would say it's like we've always done it. Like reputational capital counts for a lot, right? Like it is good old social media sniffing for most folks, I think still. And Jeremy hit it, like you go to the person who posted it and see what else they've posted and see if they see if they're a legitimate source or not. And then see if legitimate sources are actually picking it up, right? Because I mean, in theory, Fox News should have something. I mean, they did retract it, even though that's a whole different, really concerning story. But they still have some incentive to actually try to care about whether or not it's real. I think that the way algorithmic video swiping up and down works, it's much harder to trace back certain things to where to their source. Like when you were in Twitter or Facebook or those kinds of things, just the text nature of like forward and back allowed you to kind of hunt back to accounts and come back out to the source and do a little investigation. It's much harder with just swipe video content to actually kind of do that investigation, especially when you're on mobile. But that would be the big thing is I would say, I mean, the platforms aren't helping in that regard, but I think reputational, whether or not they care about their reputation matters a lot.
Sure. Totally. Yeah, no, it's to me, I think it's one of those things where the sort of like that combination of like how we now consume using these social platforms and the algorithm, the sort of very like zombie-like approach to just, digesting and sort of moving on and sort of taking whatever little bit of information from that piece and not really thinking about it more, but then it's sort of planted in your brain. That's the thing that sometimes makes me nervous about this, that it's become such a passive way to engage, and that in that passive engagement, this AI generated stuff just sort of sits there and you don't really think about it, but you do end up ingesting it, and so it can have an effect. Yeah.
I will also say you got to treat it the same. If you see something that's like too good, like difficult to believe, oh my goodness, it really shocks you. I mean, what would you do if you read a tweet that Beyonce died, right? Like you would look into it and you would go hunting. Is this a real person who said this? Is this a real outlet or is this fake? Right. I think it's the same thing. I think relying on your kind of the social investigative tools that we've done for a long time matter. But this is a side note. I just did see hit my email this morning. I don't remember who it was saying that especially Gen Z spends way more time as on these platforms scrolling vertical video than television, right? And that kind of interaction is super passive. If you're going to take that, like I'm going to sit and watch it for 4 hours as my entertainment medium, that is a totally different passive relationship in general than like a more focused interaction with the social platforms. So I think relying on people to do that investigation every second for hours and hours and hours a day, I don't think is realistic. So it's
it's tough because a lot of people assume when they watch my videos that that's how they should be watching, is just with this highly skeptical eye. But I really go back to what you said, Russ, about 6 months ago when you saw something and you're like, wow, that is crazy. I can't believe that happened. Like you didn't have any reason to believe that it literally didn't happen. And now we do. And it just, there needs to be a transition over to how we view things. Because on the other hand, what I didn't say earlier is that half of the videos I get sent are real. I mean, people are just generally freaked out. And a lot of the real ones people send, they don't understand that, like, that person has a reputation. They're not going to make an AI video. Like, why would they do that? So there is and also it's something casual too. So it's like, we need to remind people that that is the main change here, is that the AI videos are taking advantage of that perspective of, wow, I can't believe that happened. That's what almost all of them do. But that level of stepping back and being like, oh, wait, that's probably because it's AI, hasn't happened yet culturally.
Yeah, I think it's a really high bar for each individual person to tell. I mean, just going back to your TikTok that kicked off the show, the idea that like the initial story was that Fox News missed it and were duped, but the truth that they literally can't tell the difference between one and the other is way more troubling. Right? Way more troubling. Yeah, like one is just kind of slipping through the filter. Oops, we made a mistake. The other one is like, we actually looked at this and we don't know. That is like, that's so I will give them this, at least they're kind of trying, right? They have not been a bastion of standing up and hunting down truth for the last decade or so.
But I like how their attraction was like, this may have been AI. We don't know. That's literally what they said. They're like, we're not sure. It's like, dude, just we could figure it out in 10 minutes. Just do that. But I just don't think that they
only there were journalists who that could do that research. One thought I had about this is, like, we sort of live in a world right now too, where you have people in power who are very quick to take anything, misinformation, disinformation, sort of fake, slightly fake or exaggerated, and just run with it. And then it sort of just like does a thing of sort of impacting the conversation, and both, to your point, sort of both sides have their sort of lose their proverbial minds about it. I was thinking back, and this is pre sort of this version of it, but like the people eating cats in Ohio thing, where it was like, that was a story, then one side went with it one way, the other side went with it the other way. It never really resolved itself and just sort of existed, and then the one bubble was sort of like, yeah, they said it was fake, but I do think it was real. And the other side was like, well, it was definitely fake. And this was an intentional thing to dehumanize people, and it's sort of like, is this just are we just going down the evolutionary path of like that misinformation can now be more physical, can now be more um you know uh you know real looking, and it will never matter whether it was fake or real. It will just be the thing that like both sides make their tell their truth about it to sort of make their point, in whatever way. And I think that's all, that's the other challenge here, is that we've become so tribal, and we're not talking to each other. We're just sort of talking at each other, and this stuff doesn't is sort of just fuel for the fire.
I think
Well, there's
that looking
a
at
whole
the
movement when you say talking at each other and tribalness. There has been a move by both sides, the far both sides, the far ends of both sides, that not caring less what is real anyway, like caring less what is true in order to like advocate to move to get somewhere, right? And so like not caring whether or not something is accurate or not. I think that kind of AI generation is just kind of the next step of that. I think that's why you see, well, I don't want to get too political, but we do political video. I think that's why you see the president fine with like reposting AI videos, right? Whereas because he's had a loose, charitably, he's had a loose relationship with the truth for a long time. And this is just the next version of that in order to like advance the objectives he wants to get to.
Yeah.
I think
Jeremy?
if we were to see that cat situation happen today, it would look very different and very worse, much worse. That's all I'll say. Is you wouldn't need JD Vance to be the one. You don't need the government creating the AI videos. Like there's a whole incentive structure that the platforms have built for AI videos of Haitians eating cats to exist, and then the entire thing gets flooded, and it's like that's what's going to happen in 26. I mean, I just don't think we have to think that hard about it. But there's also, I will say, an embarrassing side of this, which is this whole idea of you really needed an AI video to make that happen. Like there is a reverse truth to this, that like when you're playing to persuadable people, it can actually work in your favor if you message it correctly. So I
Right.
don't. I mean, I'm not looking forward to that happening, but it will happen, and I think we have to think about how to talk about when it happens. It's an inevitability at this point. The incentives are already there.
Yeah. I'm curious, your point about the cat eating thing happening now and how different it would be. I would go even a step further. It would be so interesting to see sort of QAnon born, the sort of QAnon conspiracy born in the age of this kind of content creation, and not the like overt content that like, oh look, here is Trump in a bunker with all the generals, like having strategy sessions about the real government that is running this country, but the sort of like grainy security footage of like a person walking in London and in association with some kind of policy thing that happened then, or an assassination that happened the next day. Like the breadcrumbing that you can do, where it is again just like a slightly more advanced version of something that is theoretical, to sort of give people permission to believe it. But then you're talking about people that are conspiratorial, who then would say, like, how does this become like the conspiracy of the conspiracy? Like, this is real, but it's fake, and sort of short circuits the whole thing. Anyway, I think we could go down all kinds of rabbit holes with this, but I'll try to keep it moving here. We'll answer a couple more questions and sort of make sure that we get to wrapping the show. I try to keep it under an hour, respecting everybody's time. The next question comes to us from Gary. How can a campaign or org combat misinformation, deepfakes online? I'm going to kick us off here. My perspective on this is by really communicating effectively with the audience that you're trying to engage with. So if you're a campaign, if you're an organization, and there's content coming out that is running counter to your goals, creating content and speaking to your audience actively about what is real and what is accurate is, in my mind, probably one of the more effective ways to compete with that stuff. If again, the goal of that misinformation is to either help the opposition or sort of debunk your mission. I think the best way is to be actively engaging with your audience as much as possible so that you could speak, for lack of a better word, your truth on those issues or on the controversy that content might be creating. Anybody else have thoughts on this?
Yeah, I would say it's really hard. I would say the broad tools, I mean, the scariest part of 26 is I don't think the broad tools are there yet. Like if you engage in every fake and every attack with you like that, that's a trap too, right? Breathing life into this stuff. I think the best you can do is just broadly say we're under attack by people who are not telling the truth. But I mean that's something that a lot of people have said for a long time. I mean Trump says that literally every single day. That's become standard campaign language. So I think it's very, very, very hard, especially in 26 for, I mean, maybe a presidential campaign could do it, but campaigns of any size, especially down ballot, as these tools become more ubiquitous, is going to be really difficult.
Jeremy, just a follow up for you on this. Do you think is this going to become just more and more of a thing where ultimately people are going to, like, when you think about campaigns and you think about organizations that are sort of a target in whatever way, that they're going to start having either a dedicated person or a team, or is it a service? Like, where do you think this is all going as far as sort of, having that information fight?
I think there's going to need to be a mediator between campaigns and, I mean, this already happens, like a mediator between the campaigns and the platforms, where there needs to be a hotline at this point, because, and it's going to be unfortunate. I do think it's going to end up being consultants and, people who at least have some sort of record with the platforms. This is something that I'm actually working on building right now as a basically groups that directly communicate with the platforms with a certain truth method. But the thing I'll say though is, like, I think the fear of deepfakes is warranted, but it is probably where the platforms will actually be focusing. So for example, like, sorry, you can't deepfake politicians right now. I mean, like, this is where the obvious guardrails already are. I'm personally more worried about massive, like what I call sock puppet account disinformation, where it's just like a bunch of fake people rage baiting the other side. I mean, that like en masse, that is way easier to deploy. There are no guardrails against it. You cannot protect against it. All the Snap, imagine, the Snap benefit videos we're seeing right now, but for every wedge issue across every campaign in every state at scale. Like, that's where this is going, and there are no guardrails to protect that. So that is what I'm actually scared about, because I do think that people will take deep faking quite seriously, and that's where the attention is going to go.
Building on Jeremy, your point there, you said something that is interesting that I had kind of overlooked, and I was thinking about it when. I'm all for the bootstrapping and the little garage, like people building the next tech thing in their garage. But the benefit of only having like 3 or 4 or 5 actors in the world who can actually create these models is you can get those 3 or 4 or 5 people in the room at the same time and talk to them all. Like, governmental entities and consortiums have the ability to actually coordinate, because they're only coordinating 3 or 4 or 5 entities. If it's 1,000, it's impossible. But there is some hope that the couple of companies, OpenAI and Google, and that can make this stuff will get on board.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting too, because I think it's always like there's also that, like, who's in power, and so how do those companies manage the relationship with those power structures to make sure that they're sort of accommodating that, but like playing.
Are you saying it may be a number of years before we make real progress on this?
And on some of this, but we'll see. I think there's so much happening right now around, like, what is the use case, where's the value, and where is this going, that I think demonstrating value and demonstrating, like, purpose is like, important. So I do think that like a lot of these organizations are they don't want to be like identified as like the model or the thing that can do this and like, you know, bring our I don't know, our government down by sort of, you know, making information totally meaningless.
I know this is jumping ahead to another question of plans and actual solutions, but it is worth mentioning that OpenAI does do C2PA metadata on every single video that they generate. So they're trying to give the world the idea of like, this is what we would like the solution to be, and they don't want to be the company that's ruining everybody's feed either. So we can talk a little bit more about that metadata layer that could be a
Sure.
real solution for a lot of these platforms, but only, of course, if we have wider adoption from non-AI vendors like Apple, like that really need to pick up that technology or that method of metadata.
Cool. All right. Well, let's get to our next question. This one comes to us from Dean. What ways can you use Sora and other AI content creation tools for good when you're trying to move people to action in an ethical way? So there's a lot of parts to this question that sort of make it an interesting one. But I will toss this one to Russell first. When do you tee us off on this one?
Sure. I've said before on this program and elsewhere, and anyone, these generation tools are like the most interesting thing and the most powerful thing that's hit our video production industry in decades. So your ability to make content and the ability to elevate content from really low, without too many resources, is massively, it's massively advanced. It's like the 5D Mark II hit again, or it's like the iPhone hit again. So from that perspective, it would behoove you to know how these tools work, either to be able to identify when they're being used against you, or to use them yourself for good content. You can use these things ethically. It is possible to use these things ethically. People are doing it all the time to elevate their content and to make good content. So that's what I would say is it's mostly a tool, and use it wisely and use it ethically for your own purposes.
Russ, what would can you give an example of like what you would recommend as an ethical use for it? Because I think that might be helpful.
Sure. Well, Sora particularly. We do a lot of transcript analysis. We get a lot of starting points. We do a lot of image generation out of Sora, especially in the creative phase, to kind of work out our ideas, what this might look like, what this might not look like. We start combining certain elements to see kind of what's possible. That would be it. I mean, just using it as an image generation tool, like we use any other, like we use microphones and cameras, except you try to do it in an ethical and open way.
I agree that I think you can use it for previs. You can use it for ideation. I'm just going to say I have a very simple answer to this. Don't use it right now. Just don't. I don't think you need to be an early adopter. I don't think you want to be an early adopter. There's this myth, and it is guys, these tools are easy to use. This is not hard stuff. I'm just being honest with you. If you need to use it, you can use it. Sora 2 makes prompts unimportant. Sora 2 does the prompting work for you. You can just tell it what you want. It used to be like Google VO3. You had to act like a camera director and learn how to prompt it. You don't need to do that with Sora 2 anymore. That's done. It'll do it. So the worst thing that you can do as a campaign is be inauthentic. There's no worse attack than this is inauthentic in all of politics. I can't think of one personally. AI is inherently inauthentic. You're not going to be able to present it authentically. You do not need to be an early adopter in this. If the AI bubble pops, you will be associated with something negative. If AI starts taking everybody's jobs, you'll be seen as associating yourself with something negative. Those are the two most likely outcomes. There's maybe a 10% chance that somehow, these companies, because this is what the public doesn't understand, is like there are tools that are called AI for marketing, and then there are Gen AI tools that use transformer architecture to make things based on, training off of large sets of data. The major AI labs are doing that. So Sora, for example, is what's called a diffusion transformer, trained a lot like large language models to to predict pixels. Large language models are a completely separate technology. But then you have things that are called AI tools, like in my DaVinci Resolve, like the transcription tool is called an AI tool. Or you could use, you can use, people are starting to call morph transitions AI when they're not, right? So there are so many things that are called AI. So it's, we can use things that are called AI. But if you're using Gen AI, you're just associating yourself with, in my opinion, a very, very bad bet, especially in politics. This would be different if you were, an app like a consumer application. But considering that, we're trying to communicate authenticity, AI is inherently going to run against that unless you use it more for pre-biz or ideation or something like that. Like, that's fine. And I'll just say this from experience. Whenever I make a video that is not completely railing against AI, I get crushed in my comments. Absolutely crushed. And, it's just not a good place to live. And I have to do it because I have to be honest with people. It's impossible to work in this world, as you all know, without using anything called an AI tool. It's impossible. So I want to be intellectually honest with my audience. But whenever I say, oh, I use this thing, it's called an AI tool, but it's not an AI tool. It's not a large language model. People don't have that nuance. People are like, nope, you're using AI. We're done. Like that's the current reaction. And that's a very popular reaction right now.
Right.
So interestingly, where do you see this going? Sorry, I'm just gonna jump off our question script, and I'm gonna ask one. Where do you see this going? And I don't have an answer for this. If AI and AI generation tools are both massively unpopular and also responsible for 98% of the content creation that we're going to see on the internet, or like some massive, if they're making everything and they're basically unpopular, where does that resolve? One, and then two, do the platforms start having incentive to push against it? Like if they know they're getting swamped with stuff that's not that, like they just want to make money, right? They don't, like TikTok does not care if it's AI and Instagram does not care if it's AI. They just want to make money. Where does that, do you think that's going to resolve at some point with these platforms being smarter about it?
We are in the hyper enshittification moment of the internet right now. The internet is the most enshittified it's ever been. The AI tools are going to further that, and the platforms are hoping that it gets more enshittified. And if you're not familiar with that idea, it's the idea that the platforms turn against the viewers, cater more to advertisers, but in the end, they end up scooping up a lot of the middle. It becomes a less good place for advertisers to be and a less good place for viewers to be. Currently, they're making the bet that people are so glued to their phones that they're just going to continue to passively consume content. I think that is not a foregone conclusion, that is what's going to happen if 80% of the content on the internet is AI generated. I just don't think we know what that world looks like yet. I don't think that the platforms are thinking about it at all. And I don't think that the people who are making AI videos are considering this either. Sora is currently collecting every prompt anyone makes on Sora. They are essentially testing it in the Sora app to see what its engagement is like. They don't need humans in the loop anymore. They're doing it so that they're not cutting out humans in the loop, but this is just racing towards this. I don't think that we know what the outcome will be. However, so I just wanted to set that up, is like that's what's currently happening, and I think it's going to continue for another year or so. However, OpenAI cannot keep giving everyone free AI generation. It doesn't make sense. Every video you post on there, assume that you have 2 wasted generations costing them $10 to $15 just for the privilege for you to make a post on Sora. There's no way that can stick around and be sustainable. There's not enough VC money in the world to make that happen. So that's got to stop somehow. Like, there's going to be a change. We don't know where that is going to be. However, Meta has said that they want AI slap generation for advertising. That's where they're going. Like, there's a lot of money being poured into this. I think that it's likely that there will be a massive disenfranchisement with the social media companies as they keep pushing this. And I don't think the social media companies are thinking about that. The disenfranchisement is going to make it very difficult to communicate to people. I have a very pessimistic take about this. I really just don't trust the people at the platforms to have any taste or any cultural awareness of how messy this is going to go. I think that we've seen evidence of that in the past. There's some optimism with the C2PA stuff. There's some optimism with Instagram trying to make their algorithm more transparent and try to give users direct control over that algorithm. But right now, the race, and I think that we're just starting the race. It's the race towards more AI slop, because that's where these companies think that they can monetize their technology at this point.
Will, I want to finally pull you into this a little bit, just because I think there's an interesting exploration here around, you've done a ton of AI experimentation for us in a lot of different ways, whether it's sort of like creating something fantastical or using it to sort of like, help animate something a certain way, or do a bunch of different things. Like, what's your sort of perspective on like these sort of like AI applications for sort of creating positive content outcomes, anything that sort of like moves the needle in a good way? Is there, do you have a perspective on this, or is it something that is it really just depends on what the ultimate goal is and how you've been playing with those tools?
This isn't the same argument necessarily, but it rings familiar to me. I come from the visual effects world, right? And in that place, puppets are better than CGI characters, right? That's just the opinion to have. And there's no nuance there. There's, so many of the hallmarks of what we're looking at with AI are true there as well. And, on top of that, there are lies as well about what is CGI or what is computer generated versus what is not. They're full movies that are just like, we want to make everything natural because that's what people want to buy. But in truth, there's background replacements, there's CGI animals in the background, whatever. That's like an omnipresent sort of thing.
Right.
AI, I think, is thought of, and to your point, Jeremy, for good reason, as a all or nothing kind of application, right? It's something that for which you have very little control over the outcome, even when you're deep in the wiring of the back ends of an open source model or whatever, right? It's like not an easy thing to control. It's rolling the dice no matter what inherently. So they are leaning in that opposite direction. It was saying, oh, don't worry about even trying to prompt it or whatever. We'll take care of all that. Just give us the basic idea on it. I would like to think, and there are times when I found this to be true, that there is a granular way that fits within the pipeline. I think it, of a motion graphics or visual effects or filmmaking thing. If we're talking about docu-style stuff, no, I don't think there's any place for it in there, right? Mm-hmm. But in video making as entirety, I think it's got a probably very useful application as one subset of image generation, asset creation in a pipeline that you just don't talk about because people have a negative opinion about it. And ultimately it's very useful, right? It's part of that tradition of people wanting their videos to be, handcrafted from the soil, instead of what it is. It's a collection of tools that come together that share information. So I think that's probably where it comes. It's headed from an industry perspective, right? People making videos with this as a tool. It's a totally different, and that's a conversation we've been having here, how it presents as, just folks using it on their phone.
Will, I don't know if you followed, but the Coca-Cola ad recently was, 100% AI generated, and it took them 70,000 generations to make one 30-second spot.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Mariah Carey's Sephora ad that I covered, where they used one morph transition, people were calling it AI. Like, guys, it's not AI. They're like, they're using AI. I'm like, no, guys, like, they hired a CG artist for the entire freaking movie or 1 minute spot. And you want to throw the whole thing out for one morph transition? Like, that's where this is. It's crazy.
Right.
It is that, but that's where the public attitude is right now. Meanwhile, Coca-Cola is literally doing an entire AI generation just on principle. It's not even a good ad.
So I'm going to jump ahead to one of our questions and talk about the Cuomo Mondani stuff that
I'm popping it up.
Like the crazy hit spots that were happening out of the Cuomo camp on the I think those were different. I find it troubling, but I think they were different because they weren't pretending to be real, right? It's like, it's the new version of cartoons. It's just like, it's the same as if somebody drew a caricature of the whole thing and put it out there because they were somewhat obviously fake. Now, the normalization of that kind of like caricatureness that anybody can do at the drop of a hat, I think is really troubling. I would be curious what models they were using to do those, but you know, I think they get away with it because people know it's not real, and they're not like tripping this authenticity trap.
I think that's what the Trump AI video did too. Is I think that they got away with it because they're not pretending it's real. I think that this is, you know, you notice the patterns here of like older campaigns trying to stay relevant. Like in general, you know, like a lot of the pro AI taste is actually more from like older Gen X, like younger boomer, like who won't care. Like that's been what I've tracked. Like young people are actually really not into it. I wish that I had more evidence on that. That's just anecdotal, just like saying that seems who's using it. It seemed like they were using VO3 for what it's worth there, and I mean, it's just people wanted me to comment on the Cuomo thing. People wanted me to comment on the Trump thing. I'm just like, guys, it's such a self-own. Like, I don't need to tell anyone why this is obviously not a good look for them and like a desperation move. And like there's some amount of like, you just don't want to play in that space. It looks sloppy, it cheapens your brand, and like it didn't work for Cuomo. Like it didn't work. I don't know. I think there's just a little bit of that. It was like you can't get angered over every little thing, but I do think that like en masse, like the normalization of it is pretty awful.
Wasn't there a thing too in Virginia where, like, I forget, it was the lieutenant governor or one of them had like a fake debate with an AI version of the Democratic opposition?
Yeah, the fact that wasn't what people were destroying is beyond me. The literally fake person AI debate is abhorrent, should have no place in our society. Trump dropping poop on some protesters is a troll. I think it deserves to be condemned, but I mean, one of these is clearly more harmful in my opinion, and it's putting an AI person and debating that, and then that's just awful.
But was it like, do you think it had sort of like a dual role of like, on the one hand, it was like for the people that got it, it was trolling, and so just, you know, like that it served its purpose as being a piece of trolling content, and then for low information voters, you know, the idea that like just by being out there, some low information voters might come across it and think it was real, and then it would impact them, or
I guess, but these people all lost, so I don't really care.
Right, that's true.
How I feel.
Yeah,
wasn't effective.
didn't change the outcome in a meaningful way. That's true. Cool. One more question in the queue. This one comes to us from Sora. Is there a plan here for fakes? Is anyone doing anything? Jeremy, kick us off.
C2PA is my number one hope at this point. OpenAI has adopted it. Google has adopted it. TikTok has adopted it. Meta is a part of the steering organization. You know, I don't want to explain it too far, but you know, in depth too much. But it has been partially led by Adobe for sure. But it is a metadata layer that is encrypted and has a cryptographically signed actor involved at every step of the editing process, so you can trace back edits and trace back provenance. So it is a provenance tool, not an authenticity tool. However, in the provenance tool, it does have different codes for different way it was created. So for example, there is a code for AI generated media, then there's a different code for an AI generated edit, then there's a different code for a non-destructive AI edit. So it has different ways to figure this out. This metadata layer is, I think, being ingested by TikTok, but not being used by it, at least not in some publicly known way. The reason that you haven't seen it much is because companies like Apple haven't adopted it yet. But once it hits, you know, a point of saturation, I'm optimistic that is a solution. I know people talk about blockchain as a solution. I think that just I mean, what, you're storing metadata on a blockchain now? Like, it's still metadata at that point. So, you know, ultimately that is the plan that has the most momentum at this point.
Russ, thoughts?
I would say to your point about it doesn't have legs until Apple jumps on. It doesn't have legs until cameras jump on, right? Like what
Yeah.
we're talking about, especially, is this magical. Whatever. I'm a camera operator. I'm a cinematographer first. So, right. So I think about this magical place where light hits the sensor, or light hits the celluloid when reality gets transmitted. Like when reality gets this indexical relationship and leaves behind a remnant of itself, and that's the thing that we go with, right? That represents reality. If it's not happening at that spot, right, you can do anything you want downstream, right? So the people. So one, it's really only important until Google Pixel and Apple iPhones are on board, and then two, there's going to be a tail on that for 5, 10, 12, 15 years. Like I can still shoot on a Canon 5D Mark III. I can still shoot on a Canon C100. These cameras make perfectly good images from 10 years ago, and none of them are going to have this, right? And expecting the entire industry of content creators to roll over into cameras that do this. I guess it's a massive sales opportunity if you're a camera manufacturer. So let's get that out there, and you guys should push. But but it's got a tail on it.
It can be cryptographically signed in the editor, so it still can prove provenance, even if it doesn't prove authenticity. Like those are separate things. Nikon has jumped on; they're going to start doing it on their cameras. But I think you're right, Russ. I think using it as a way to prove something is real or not is not what it's for. It's used to identify provenance. Luckily, if the AI vendors more than just Sora, I actually think that Google did, but they were trying their whole synth ID thing for a little while. Anyway. It is quite likely that we will have better provenance and authenticity data from the AI companies specifically. And then we hope that, cameras start adopting it. And it is possible to create other sorts of signatures. By the way, there's this really funny camera that my friend sent me. He works at Meta. He's just like, this company's trying to solve it at the camera level, and in their it's like they cryptographically sign every sensor image, and it's like on the Q&A, it's like, how do you get the photos off the camera? And it's just like, we're currently working on how to get the photos off the camera. So it's like that's the level that we're at right now.
Interesting. One thing I was going to just sort of add, because we're actually working with a client that's sort of working in the space of creating like a regulatory framework for, like certification and, proper use. And is there, and this is specific to government, but I'm wondering more broadly, is there sort of like, how there's like LEED certification for buildings? Like, is there a future where we have an expert panel or sort of group or collective that part of their responsibility is to sort of like share opinions or share, way to identify something as being a proper use, improper use, or effective, or non-effective?
I've been considering, I haven't talked about this publicly, starting a nonprofit for creators that just promise they don't use it, because I think that's easier. Like if you can validate and certify creators who don't use it to generate
organic creators.
Like at the very least, like for example, on my pages, and I've seen other TikTok creators just do this. Actually, Aerie made this. Aerie, the American Eagle like underwear and lingerie company, I think that's what they do. They said on their Instagram, we will not use AI at all. And it was like the most liked ad on Instagram all year. That's the most effective way to do this. Is we just need people who want to do it organically to hop on, trust each other like the old-fashioned human way. So I've considered starting a nonprofit of just like, anyone who belongs to this nonprofit's just, they're going to promise they're not going to use it. We're going to audit them once a year, and we're going to give them the tools to fight back against disinformation. Like I think that we have to be optimistic that there are going to be human-centered ways. We don't always need tech solutions to tech problems. Like we can figure out some more community ways to do it. I'm optimistic about something like that in the near future. As far as like any, I'm always skeptical of any sort of, I think as liberal, more, centralized thinkers, I think that we give a lot of credence to centralized solutions, and oftentimes those lead to more distrust. And, it's like, it sounds good. And then you talk to someone who just doesn't know about it, and it just comes off as like someone deciding what's real or not. I don't know. I just don't know if it would hold up.
Interesting. All right. Well, I feel like we've covered a lot here. We've gotten to our last question. Would love to just run through some closing thoughts. Jeremy, I feel like you have sort of drawn a pretty comprehensive picture here about how you feel about the space and some of these sort of outcomes you're seeing and the direction things are going. Maybe we can end on, and you touched on some optimism there in your last response, but maybe we can sort of end on like an optimistic note. What are some of the things you're sort of thinking about seeing beyond, the sort of nonprofit you're talking about as it relates to this kind of, what's happening right now and where this is all going that might be a positive?
Yeah, and I would love to hear Russ's opinion on this, but I really just think that we're just so early, just even in the internet. I mean, the internet hasn't even existed that long, guys. Like, I mean, so I'm 31 right now. Like the internet was invented when I was, a kid, and I still remember not internet, and I'm not even that old. And it's like we maybe had the golden age of the internet for 10 years. That's how it feels, and then it all got slopified, and like we might be on that track right now, but we just have to remember that like this is very early, and there are possibilities for this. So that's the first thing I'd say. Just like bigger picture, it's like easy to get lost and feeling like everything's always moving so fast. And the second thing is really don't underestimate the power of just like organic community to do this. I've been amazed what I can do by just talking to some of these AI creators and understanding their perspective and getting them to take things down. Creating public discourse around this as a way to create norms. And we got to sometimes just go back on good old public shaming. Sometimes, like, I know it sounds harsh. It's like, this creator is creating AI deepfakes. That's not cool. And, so I think that there's broad, and this is the last thing I'll say, is there is surprising bipartisan consensus around this issue, and take some comfort in the fact that it is maybe a current miscalculation on the right that this is going to work out in a way that is popular in any sort of way. So speaking from a political lens, that's where I see it going right now as well.
Nice. Russ, he teed you up there. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm usually an optimist. Jeremy's been broadly pessimistic. I'm glad on this particular issue. I'm glad he came around a little optimism there at the end. I think he's right. I think it's very, very early, and I think it is often dangerous to take big steps in such a early technology. I mean, we wrote Section 230, granting social media companies complete immunity from the posts they put on their platforms. We did that a long time ago when we didn't even know. We did it for like the internet, and we didn't see how this is going to work out, and it just kind of became codified, and now we're stuck with it, right? So being smart about how this works. You want to be careful about it, I guess, and you don't want to jump too early. That said, and now I'm going to be pessimistic. If you quote the Big Lebowski and you look for the people who benefit, dude, like there are enormous financial incentives on all these different levels for individuals to behave badly. And the only incentives to enforce good behavior and responsibility and accountability come from a collective space, right? Yeah. And that's the role of government. It just is. When you get into these situations where everyone's incentive, every individual company, every individual person wins if they behave badly. That's where we have to come together and say this is how we're going to have standards. So I have hope for things like CP2A and metadata and these centralized solutions. But at the end of the day, I mean, I think this has to be driven by people, by the elected officials of the people, for it to be a workable structure.
Interesting. Will, any closing thoughts for you about how you've been thinking about this, how this conversation has impacted your thinking?
What I think is interesting about the disinformation part of this when it relates to video is that video, it is falsifiable, right? This AI video stuff ultimately is falsifiable. The meteor conversation is really just the way that information is transmitted, and that verification doesn't necessarily need to be a part of that chain, right? I think about the cat litter box thing that went around, right? Like that doesn't even have anything backing it up, an article, words, anything, right? And it is cemented in folks' brains as like a thing that actually happened. I suppose ultimately this just really cheapens AI or video as a medium overall, right? Because in general, folks are saying that it's AI as a way of saying, I don't like it, a shorthand for saying, I don't like this thing, right? And so that disinformation space is going to continue to exist. It exists in other mediums, but the principal effect that it has here, despite this arms race to create some type of verification system, right, is that video is inherently much more disposable and much less worth folks' attention, right? Scroll even faster because there's even more stuff out there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I'm gonna sort of take a nerd turn here on the end of this, and it's funny. I feel like a lot of this recently, especially the way that the stuff is moving and sort of the way it's gotten us to think about where things are going, has had me thinking a lot about like a lot of my favorite sci-fi franchises, like Dune and Star Wars, where some of those ideas of like, removing that or having it expressed a certain way when you're talking about Star Wars, in robots and such, how that like feels different now, given the place we are, with where the technology is living, for us. And even, I'm sure everybody in this group got served the video of that robot that is going to be out next year that, will do your dishes and all that stuff. And it's all still human controlled, but the ultimate goal here is to have this thing that for 4 hours at a time will clean your house. But we're sort of in like a really strange moment, and I do think that like what ultimately gives me hope is the idea that like we as humans are still sort of like want to have community, want to have connection, want to want everybody to have better outcomes. We're not like sort of incentivized to like have everybody be in a shitty place. And Jeremy, to your point, like that undercurrent that where most people are living when it relates to AI is the like, this isn't great. I'm not loving this. This is not a place that I want to be. And it feels like people just, because it's so early days, people are not sure how to what agency they have to change that, other than to either, throw their hands up and say, it's not my problem right now, or whatever it is. But I do think that it'll be interesting to see as this stuff begins to have more of a direct impact, like people losing their jobs because they are in fact being replaced for sort of different levels of work, where it's more of an intelligence driven or a communication driven work that can be sort of replicated. How that begins to impact the kinds of people we elect and the kinds of decisions they make about this stuff from a policy standpoint. And I think that stuff, we'll probably see some of that play out in the midterms next year as more and more people running for office are going to have to take a stance on this and run on this issue. And it's going to impact people's voting, the way they vote. And that will be interesting. And then, Trump will make a video of pooping on them, and we'll see how that goes. All right. Well, thank you. Really, really appreciate it. Again, thank you, Jeremy, for being on with us today. Want to remind everybody watching, you can follow him, showtools.ai on all, I assume, all the platforms. I know you said your preference is YouTube, but you're across the board there.
Yeah, everywhere except for X or Twitter. I'm just staying off there. But yeah, all the video platforms, yeah, at ShowTools AI.
Cool. And it's great content. I can't recommend it enough. Having been introduced to it this past week, I'm really enjoying sort of going back to some of your older stuff. So
Thank you.
I really appreciate you being on, and look forward to I feel like you're only going to get busier. So good luck.
Yeah.
Sort of navigating all of that. Thank you, Will and Russ, for being on. I know we've got a million projects in the pipeline, and everybody's juggling a lot. So thank you for taking the time to do this again. Really excited. We've got some really cool stuff coming up on our next show in 2 weeks. We're going to try and do some really cool stuff with clipping out of this episode, and we're going to talk about it in our next episode. That's going to be an interesting thing to discuss, especially as it relates to campaigns. and organizations trying to break through in these algorithms and really reach more people. So excited to have that conversation. And yeah, we'll keep it going. Please, again, if you haven't already, please join our community. Go to harpin.com/sign up. Sign up for the newsletter. We'll keep you up to date on future episodes. And we'll only got a few more before the end of the year, but excited to continue to build momentum and have some great conversations. Thanks all, and have a great rest of your day.